Alright, how can we get the Chunky mod? Chunky in Minecraft can be used as a server plugin or as a mod, depending on your environment. On servers, you basically get Chunky from Spigot.mc, then drag the .jar file, which is the mod file. You drag it into the plugins folder within your server. Then just restart the server and verify it's installed correctly using /pl, okay? For those wanting it in their world, go to Files in Chunky, find it on CurseForge, go to Mod Loaders, Forge all versions, and select 20.1. Click the three buttons and then Get File. Save this file in the Minecraft and Mods folder, okay? This folder is found by pressing Windows plus R, App Data, going to Roaming Minecraft, and there you'll find the mods folder without any issues. And now you have access to the Chunky mod. If you type / and can write chunk, then you have it installed, okay? Or /chunky, okay? And there you have all the commands. /chunky start, okay? And there, as you can see, it's generating chunks, for example. So there you have it. Alright, how does pre-generation work with Chunky in Minecraft? Chunky is used to pre-generate chunks, meaning it automatically generates or loads terrain in advance in a predetermined way. The idea is that when players explore later, there won't be load spikes from generating new chunks, reducing lag and CPU load during exploration. This is especially useful in survival mode, and particularly in multiplayer survival servers, where each player can generate chunks simultaneously. Pre-generation also creates cleaner map renders with defined boundaries, so we can pre-generate a radius around busy areas like near spawn or within a world border to limit how far the world will generate, okay? We do this using /chunky, and for example, we can type start. It says starting a new generation of chunks, or /chunky wall border, which uses the world border as center and radius, or to set the spawn point, etc. Very well. How do you pre-generate an area with Chunky? To generate a circular or square area around a center point in Minecraft with Chunky, we first define the radius and then start the task, okay? We'll use the /chunky command and then type radius, okay? Here we define the radius, okay? The radius value is the distance in blocks from the center. By default, it's usually 0, 0. For example, a radius of 5,000 generates from 0, 0 to that distance, creating a radius of 5,000 blocks. In some cases, you can specify 2 radii for shapes like rectangles or ellipses, though it's best not to change this if you don't need to, okay? So let's set the radius to 1,000 blocks, okay? We hit enter, it says the radius has been changed to 1,000. And now we type /chunky start and it will begin. Well, we can also select the dimension if we want. Let's use the overworld. And here they even let us choose the shape, okay? Let's not touch it and click enter. And that's where the generation will begin, okay? As you can see, it shows I have 5 minutes left, 4 minutes. Well, I've pre-generated some chunks before, so it might avoid generating some parts, but you see it says 4 minutes, which means it might lag a bit. Well, I don't really notice much. Well, yes, a little bit. A little bit from time to time. It's completely normal. We're generating lots of chunks right now, and obviously remember that when you do this, your world file will be larger, okay? I mean, those chunks, are actually being generated and loaded, okay? The good thing is that loading them later won't be a problem, okay? If you're on a server, it might take more depending on the server's RAM, okay? When you're in single player, it depends on your computer's RAM, but on a server, it depends more on the server's RAM. Got it? So nothing to do but be patient. Alright, how to pre-generate with world border using Chunky. If you want to pre-generate within clear boundaries in Minecraft, you can use the vanilla world border, which is square-shaped. The key command is vanilla world border, okay? Let's do it. World border set. And remember, it uses diameter, not radius. So if you want a radius of 10,000, you need to enter 20,000. Let's set the distance to 100, okay? Let's make sure the world border is at least within my area. We'll set it to 500, okay? Let's see it. If I move over there, it should be visible. I'll make it a bit smaller to see it better. Ah, look, I think we can see it now. There's the world border, see? Here we have the edge of the world. If we want, we can also center it. Center, 0, 0, okay? So that it's centered. Now it was at 0, 0, but well, it's in case we want to center it, okay? And then we'll go with chunky, okay? We do chunky world border, okay? It tells us Well, basically it configures the radius based on the world border. As you remember, I said 500, right? Well, now it changes my radius to 250 because it's 500 in diameter, meaning 250 plus 250. And then basically, we hit chunky start to generate all the chunks within the radius, okay? So task started and so on. Obviously, since the radius is now very small, it's not a problem. We're going to set a world border of 5,000, okay? I might regret this, but oh well. We already have the 5,000. We do chunky world border, and now we hit start. So what it's going to do is generate everything within this 5,000 border. And then it tells me, for example, that it'll take 25 minutes because I've gone completely overboard. Important, important. Everything generated within this area will be stored on your device, okay? So if you're loading a 5,000 by 5,000 area, I get it might seem fun, but be careful. And if we make a mistake, we can pause, okay? Task pause. Progress, let's see. Well, there's nothing, and this way we can avoid or we can stop. Look, to continue executing use continue, or to start a new one, use confirm, okay? This depends on what we want to do. If we want to continue the task, we click continue, or if we want to start a new one, we use /confirm. So if we've made a mistake, we can stop it, okay? But keep that in mind. This prevents players from generating chunks outside the limit and keeps world size more controlled with more reasonable backups, okay? Define clear blocks to create maps and alternatives mentioned for custom edges. So that's it. There we have it. How to configure world shape and center with Chunky. Before running the Chunky start command to begin generation, Chunky allows you to fine-tune what gets pre-generated, okay? Basically, if we use Chunky World, we can choose which world to generate, or even select the shape of chunks with /Chunky shape, like hexagonal, for example, okay? We can do all of this. We can use shapes like squares, circles, diamond, ellipsis, hexagonal, and more. We can also change the center, okay? If we go to Chunky and type center, here we can change your current position and from where the chunk radius will start generating, okay? If we just type center, it uses your current position. If we enter coordinates, then we can see it there. And we can also set spawn, okay? To fix the spawn point, basically. Then we also have a selection by corners, okay? Where we put chunky corners, and instead of using radius, we say, I want it to go from 1 to -1, okay? And I want this to be my zone. That's it, no more discussion. This way we can configure the world, the shape of the center, before we begin to start with the start button. Also important, if we do chunky and hit start, right here, we can choose the overworld, the figure, the center, if we want it 1 to 1. We have it within the configuration itself, so we don't need to set it beforehand. But, well, there are different ways to do it. Very well. How do you start, pause, and continue tasks with Chunky? Very well. To start, we basically use /Chunky start, okay? Now, as you can see, I have a task here that will take about 19 minutes, which is generating part of the world. So we can define it very easily. We simply say, hey, I want you to stop, okay? Put it on pause. We do this with /Chunky pause. If we want it to continue, we use continue, okay? We type continue and it will resume. If we want to cancel it, we type cancel, okay? That's how we would cancel it. Often when canceling, it will prompt /Chunky confirm, okay? So you cancel it and confirm, and that stops it, okay? And your world stops generating automatically, or as you had defined it. It's important to note that Chunky cancel doesn't delete what's already generated, it only removes the task. To delete chunks, you use Chunky trim, okay? Chunky trim? I did. Alert. Chunks in Minecraft _overworld _outside _ of the _square _region _centered _ at 0505 with a radius of 2500 will be permanently deleted. Please make sure to back up your server and everything else. If you're sure, type Chunky confirm, okay? So you'll do that and deleted 0 chunks. Well, there are 0 chunks around me, which seems incredible. And there's also the reload function, okay? Chunky reload, okay? That basically reloads the configuration or reload tasks, okay? And so on. Reloading tasks isn't the same as cancelling. It's used if something got paused or bugged, okay? In case you have a task that's currently running. Very good. How can we view progress and mute messages with Chunky and Mangles? Well, during Chunky start, let's do it. Chunky start. Look, there it is. See how it starts generating. During the Chunky start, Chunky normally reports progress in the server console with percentage data and other metrics like processed chunks and rate. If you're on the client side, you won't see anything, and it's recommended to check the launcher's output log or use the chunky progress command, okay? We also have that here, chunky progress, right? And here it tells us processed chunks, 32,753, 33.01%, comma, ETA, 16 minutes, 55 seconds, rate 65.14 PS, and current 95 minus 95, okay? If I send it again now, it will change, right? I understand that current means the chunky is generating right now. We can also use /chunky silent so that it doesn't show the chunks being generated, okay? This way we can hide the bar and, server messages where only users or admins can see certain indicators, okay? We can also change the message interval using /chunky quiet and define an interval, for example, every 5 seconds or 0, okay? Let's set it to every 3 seconds, okay? This way it would give us the data every 5 seconds, I believe. To review the current selection, we would use selection, okay? And to change the generation order, which only changes the order, not the result, we could use pattern, okay? It shows the default pattern, which is usually the best setting, and it's more of an optional adjustment, right? Important. If we want to see the bar again, we use silence again, and it will reappear, okay? There it is. Very well. How can we optimize RAM and CPU when using Chunky to generate our Minecraft world? Chunky's speed in Minecraft mainly depends on your hardware, especially the CPU. For stability, allocate at least 12 to 16 GB of RAM if you're seriously pre-generating, as this task consumes a lot of memory. If RAM is insufficient, the game or server may crash or become unstable. Helpful mods include Lithium and Forks or Modern Fix, which can improve performance. Ferret Core or Modern Fix can also reduce RAM usage, but you should still allocate sufficient memory. A best practice is to pre-generate before players join the server, okay? It's usually faster and prevents players from experiencing lag, since more people on a server means, or rather it will require more resources. And if we're asking for excess consumption, well, I don't even need to tell you, okay? Also, if we have map plugins, it might be better to temporarily disable them during pre-generation or avoid launching many dimensions at once if you don't have enough CPU RAM, okay? First go with the overworld, then the nether, and then the end. So that's basically what I can tell you, and above all, have patience, okay? There's not much more that can be done beyond this. In the end, we're just generating chunks. Obviously, if you're generating chunks, don't say, well, if I remove all the mods, it'll generate better. Because if you remove all the mods, they'll generate without the chunks and won't have the structures or chests you want, etc., okay? You need to be patient. Alright, how do we calculate world size with Chunky in Minecraft? In Minecraft, the world file size grows with generated chunks, which are the region files. Chunky mentions using a calculator to estimate storage requirements based on game version. It mentions a range from version 1.8 to 1.20.1, the dimensions, overworld, nether, and end, and the radius and diameter. The goal is to predict how much space your world will occupy after pre-generating, especially on servers with large boundaries, like radii of 10,000 or 20,000. An important warning, if you add mods that alter world generation, the actual size may be larger than what's estimated for vanilla. That's because these calculators are designed for unmodified worlds. Here, for example, we have the world size calculator, right? And the version appears there. So let's select 1.2, 0.1, and we'll tell it that for the overworld we've generated 50,000 blocks. Well, I understand that's the radius. It says so right there, okay? Radius, a radius of 20,000 blocks, okay? In the nether, we've generated a radius of, 20,000 divided by 8, so 2,500 blocks. Let's make it a little bit less. Well, no, 2,500 would be right, wouldn't it? And then, in the end, 5,000 blocks. So, there we have total size 70 gigs, okay? The overworld is 67, the nether 0.59, and the end 1.61. Actually, we could try to expand some of the other dimensions a bit, but you always have to be careful since players can teleport outside the world border, right? And your world is generated with Chunky. Then this depends on the version, okay? Here, the 1.20.1 weighs more than 1.21, and the lower you go, the heavier it gets. Oh no, minus 1.1, that weighs nothing there. Well, so there we have it, okay? mean, it depends on what we want to do, but we could calculate it this way without much problem. In any case, it's just a guideline, okay? It doesn't mean it will weigh exactly that. But remember, if you generate a radius of 20,000 blocks, it's radius, right? Not diameter, right? I mean, it would be better if it were 10,000. Of course, then the size is much more reasonable. 8 gigs, and this halved to 125. Okay, this is more normal, 7 gigs. I was going to say that making a backup of 70 gigabytes is pretty intense, honestly. Okay, so maybe a world of 7 gigs is good. It's quite a lot, okay? It's quite a lot, but if you're running a server, players should be able to move up to 10,000 blocks, right? So up to 20,000, 20,000, or limit it to 10,000 if you want, okay? I mean, you can divide it many ways, and 10,000 by 10,000 gives you plenty of gameplay, right? Don't think you're going to limit the player's gameplay at all, okay? But that said, if you're playing Minecraft Vanilla or Minecraft with mods, ensure the necessary structures are generating. For example, in Minecraft Vanilla, we'd need the stronghold, right? So make sure the stronghold is there. And if not, use the /place command, /place structure and type stronghold. Let's do it now. And here I just placed a stronghold. I'm not really sure where I placed it, honestly. I don't see it. Oh, look, it's down here, okay? Right here I placed a stronghold that generated however it wanted, honestly. Oh my goodness. But keep these things in mind because otherwise players won't be able to complete the world, okay? Very well. How to use trim to delete chunks with Chunky. Chunky trim lets you permanently remove chunks to fix errors like overgeneration or to clean up chunks outside borders. Example, deleting everything outside a square with a 10,000 block radius, okay? We would use Chunky trim world square. The center is 0, 0, and the radius is 10,000, okay? So it's going to delete everything outside that selection. So you understand that now you just run Chunky start, and it does it, right? Oh, it's already doing it. Okay. Since there aren't any chunks, hit cancel, and now it works. Let's set this up again. But instead of a 10,000 radius, let's use 5,000, okay? Important. Deleted chunks can't be restored without a backup. You can make copies beforehand, and after trimming, you must restart the server to prevent deleted chunks from staying in memory and causing issues. Newer versions let you choose whether to trim outside or inside. In my case, I have it set to inside or outside if I want to remove chunks from inside or outside. If you use Dynmap or BlueMap, you should re-render to show the changes. Use purge, full render commands, and so on. So that's important, okay? Very well. How do you use Chunky with distance horizons? In Minecraft, distance horizons can show enormous distances, but by default it needs chunks to have been explored or loaded first. So Chunky is used as an alternative, so when you enter the world, you already have data for unexplored areas at hand, okay? The thing is, if I use distance horizons, what the mod will do is start loading and loading chunks. What's the benefit? If I already have them generated, rather than loading or generating chunks, all that computation won't be necessary, right? The mod will simply have to load them instead of generating them, and that's it, okay? So we can use Chunky, right? We use Chunky type Chunky start and begin defining what we want. In the overworld, I want a shape, a square shape with the center at 0, 0, and a radius of 20,000. No, look, don't get fixated on the radius, okay? With a radius of 2,000 blocks, okay? 2,000 blocks, and that's it. And then you'd simply hit enter, and this radius would start generating. So if we were using distance horizons, once that's processed, our computer won't need to process that part anymore because the chunks have already been generated. It's important to note that obviously those chunks will be stored on your computer, okay? Obviously you'll have stability issues, okay? And the game can crash if you go too far, okay? So use your head. My practical recommendation is to increase the radius in increments, like from 100 to 200 or 100 to 150 to reduce crash risk. And remember, you can play while Chunky loads chunks around you, okay? So there you have it. Very well. How to render maps after pre-generating with chunking in Minecraft. If you're on a server using map plugins in Minecraft, after chunking pre-generation, you typically need to do a full render for the map to display the new chunks. So, for example, with Dynmap, you would use the command /dynmap full render and specify the world name, okay, like overworld or whatever. For visibility limits, such as corners with a 10,000 block radius, we'd use /dynmap pause all, okay? This pauses everything, and then we'd use worlds add limits, okay? We'd specify the world and then set what limit we want to apply, okay? For instance, we type overworld, setting it from coordinates 1000 to -1000 as the boundary, okay? Then we use /Dynmap again and cancel the pause with pause none, okay? This way we would pause the visibility limits and so on. Then also with BlueMap, we could use /BlueMap update, okay? We would enter the map ID. And then to clean up, we could use BlueMap purge, okay? And the map ID also, it mentions adjusting the minimum and maximum X and Z values in the configuration for boundaries and such. If we use Squaremap, we'd use /Squaremap full render, and that's it, okay? We'd specify the world and done. For maps with clean edges, it mentions pre-generating a bit beyond the border, like for a 10,000 block border with 10 chunks render distance, add 200 blocks, okay? For example, 10,200 for border markers and such. And that's it. With this, I've explained the entire chunking mod. I hope you liked it. It's been a pretty comprehensive guide, especially for those of you with servers, and I hope it's been... Sorry I don't have a server on hand to show you everything visually and had to do it in single player, but I hope it's been helpful anyway, okay? Remember that in the description you'll find my AI course if you're interested, and I'll see you in future videos.